Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for those of you in the Eastern Hemisphere. This it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to this inspirational talk with Diana Sierra. I am Carolina Ocampo Maya, and I will be facilitating this conversation today. On behalf of the Colombian American Association, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar Inspirational Talks. The Colombian American Association was founded in 1927. It was the first binational chamber of commerce for Colombia established in the United States. It is a private, nonprofit business organization that seeks to disseminate up to date information on economic, financial, and political matters and promote commercial and cultural ties among the people of the two nations. I would like to remind the attendees that you can send questions at any time through the Q&A feature in in this window, and I will read them throughout the conversation and will give the last 10 minutes to address some of those questions. So you're all welcome to sorry about that. That is what happens when you are in a home office. Anyway, just a way of introducing myself as moderator for this conversation and discussion. I'm Carolina Ocampo Maya. I have a little more than 15 years of experience in sustainability and ESG, aligning corporations and company vision, mission, and strategy with the sustainable development agenda. My work has focused on multiple sectors, including infrastructure, finance, agro-industry, foods and beverages in Latin America and the United States. I also want to say that I am the chair of the board of Pro Familia, which is Colombia's largest and one of the largest organizations in the developing world working on sexual rights and reproductive rights, from access to education, services and strong advocacy. So I share this because this subject that we're going to be talking about today is very dear to my heart, and I am delighted and thrilled to facilitate this conversation with Diana. That said, I would like to give a heartfelt thanks to Diana Sierra for taking the time to be with us today. Diana is the co-founder and CEO at Big Girl, a social enterprise focused on empowering women by design, dedicated to creating extremely affordable, aspirational, and high-performance products that support women and girls' autonomy and generate opportunities to radically improve their quality of life. In developing countries, she has worked in Africa and South America on better designs for cook stoves, agro-processing machines, soil testing devices, and women empowerment programs through business and design. She built her career in industrial design as a consultant, working for almost 15 years for different renowned multinational companies and consultancy firms. Diana holds a Master of Science degree in Sustainability Management from Columbia University, where we actually met about a decade ago. And she also holds a Bachelor of Arts in Industrial Design from the Universidad de los Andes in Bogota. So without further ado, I want to give the floor to Diana, who's going to give us a short presentation, and then I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful conversation this next hour. Go ahead, Diana, the floor is yours.
Hi, Carolina. Thank you for taking the time to read that bio that I know that is full of very complicated words. All the time that I have to read or something like that, I feel sorry for whoever is introducing me, because like sometimes it's like this really complex words that you guys will see me tripping in some of them when I'm doing my presentation. Thank you so much to everybody for making the time to be here, for giving us the space, or giving us and giving me the space to share with you what has been the journey for Big Girl. As Carolina said, I'm Colombian. I am a very proud paisa. I was born in Miami, but I grew up in Colombia, and I come from Santuario Risaralda. I got the opportunity, the amazing opportunity to study industrial design in Universidad de los Andes. And from there, I basically jumped to New York and had all my career for more than 16 years working in New York in the space of product design and development, doing several consumer electronics and houseware goods and healthcare products before doing B-Girl. So I had a really good presentation that I wanted to share with you, everybody, just to have a little bit of a glimpse of what B-Girl is. B-Girl is a social venture. As Carolina mentioned before, we basically are in this world to make sure that design becomes a platform or a way to embrace and love menstruation and periods. So we are here to use design tools to create products, services, and messages that allow women and girls to own their bodies, to really feel proud of who they are. And we have been doing all this through a social venture that is called B-Girl, which I co-founded. It's a company that basically is my bread and butter and is all my soul and dreams. And I'm super happy to be able to share with you what it is in this presentation that I have called Designing the Trojan Horse. So with no more ado, let me just share my screen, and please, Carolina, if you don't see my screen coming to life, please give me the heads up.
Yes.
Yeah, because you start talking and then you don't even know. And by the way, everybody in the presentation, I'm doing this presentation from Mozambique, and literally is pouring, like the sky is falling. So if for one and another reason I end up dropping out, it's because a power cut or something like that. So let's hope that's not the
Let's hope
case.
it doesn't happen, because we really want to hear your
I
story.
know, but like literally, like, or if you see thunders, or if you see me doing like this, it's because it's like literally the sky is falling. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Make sure that I am here exactly what I need to be. I hope that's the case. Do you guys see that? Do you see my screen?
Yes, I think we can see your screen. Yes, perfect.
Fantastic. So I guess we're going to go into full screen mode now, isn't it? Awesome. So designing the Trojan horse. Why did I decide to call this presentation Designing the Trojan Horse? It's very simple, because B-Girl in a way is my Trojan horse. I think everybody here in one way or another had one of those built in their lives. So I wanted just to make sure that I was able to transmit what has been all this journey for me in a way that is kind of like storytelling, because this hasn't been something easy or like something that I actually planned. Pretty much like everything in life is storytelling, because this has. I have an echo from Lina Delgado. Something that I actually. Okay, sorry. I just had to, because we have a. So what I'm saying is, like, I really wanted to do this like in a storytelling way, because I think it's really important that you get to see not only the side of the business, but also how is it that an entrepreneur somehow build this type of thing. So I guess by now everybody knows what the Trojan horse is, and if you don't, just Google Brad Pitt, and you probably will be able to have the best pictures of what the Trojan horse is supposed to mean. But the Trojan horse basically is this story that where, you know, we had the Trojans who wanted to conquer. So we have the Spartans who wanted to conquer Troja, and basically they created this amazing horse that it was hollow inside. So the Trojan people thought it was a gift, and basically when they left it at the doors, they managed to hide themselves inside the horse and take on the city at night. So this thing is really important, because at the end, this object, the Trojan horse, is basically a sub. I always have a hard time with this word, so Carolina. Subterfuge, which in Spanish is un artilugio. It's like, is this thing that you create that looks like one thing, but then at the end, does another one. So at the end, basically through this object is that they managed to win the war. And this is really important, because in a way, B-Girl for me has been this object that had enabled me to create and change all this very bad and and negative conversations about periods, but without people even knowing that I was actually doing that through design. So it's really important because at the end, you just create all this, all this package, all this like structure, but people doesn't really know that you're doing this in order to achieve your goal. So that's for me, being able to achieve that goal, that end of eliminating these pervasive conversations about periods, these taboos, and this notion that periods are dirty, have been my Trojan horse, and in a way, it's what Big Girl is. So um, a lot of people don't know this, and but right now, thankfully, through the work that not only me but a lot of people in this space we have been doing, we have been advocating to making sure that people do understand that menstruation is a huge issue for a lot of girls and women in this planet, that they don't have the means to take care of their body with dignity and with the resources that they need. And this is really unfair because the nature of your body shouldn't be the thing that gets on the way of access to opportunities. But it's something as simple as your period can be the hinder from you to really, really reaching your potential. So if a girl or a woman doesn't have the means to manage her period, that woman is literally going to stay incarcerated in her own body. She's not going to be able to go to the market. She's not going to be able to go to school. And if a girl doesn't, she cannot go to school. Basically, she is going to be sit up. She's going to have to sit at home. Probably she's going to keep isolated, miss classes that if they're going to end up like dropping out of school, getting married or pregnant early, which has its own like physical and health consequences, and ultimately just keep her trapped in that never-ending cycle of poverty. So that is something that we at Big Girl, we want to change. We really want to change that, and we want to use design to really shift the status quo and use design to create and reframe menstruation as something for you to understand, to own and love. And why is this important? Because a girl or a woman who is able to understand, love, and own her body, it's a girl that has agency. And agency is critical because that's what gives you the position or like the place for you to make informed decisions to take direction of what you want in your life. So this is basically the three pillars of what I have built the company of Big Girl. So the understanding, as I said before, it's critical not for a girl just to get a period panty or a sanitary pad. No, for us, it's really important that she understands what's happening with her body. So the understanding piece is critical because if she understands what is happening with her body, she's going to be able to connect with it and make informed decisions. So that's our very first piece of our work, that smart cycle. So if you see them in the screen, it's a very little clock. It's kind of like a toy. So when I designed it, I thought, what would be like the easiest way to get kind of like a biology and sexual reproductive health class in a really crunch package? And it's designed for very young kids, like uh, early adolescents, between like, the ages of 8, 10, that they're just kind of like starting to learn their body. We created this little clock that basically works like an app. Like a lot of people have apps on their phones that they allow them to take care, like count their cycle. This one is manual. So basically with this, you're able to understand that the cycle has 3 stages: preparation, menstruation, ovulation, and preparation. And this is not birth control, but it's what we call body literacy. So at least you know how is that your internal biological clock is working. And this has been amazing because allow us to explain to very young adolescents and really young kids, how is it that the body works? And not just for girls, but also for boys. It's really easy to engage in a conversation about periods when the object of engaging in the conversation is pretty much kind of like a toy. because this allowed it for them to internalize the knowledge. So as you know, this type of product actually makes the sound like a clock. So when I designed it, I really wanted this to be something fun. So the understanding part, we address it with this type of products, and also we have a whole educational package that we not only do at a business level, but we also work with other organizations to make sure that everybody does understand the menstrual cycle. Um, the second piece of our work, which is the ownership, the own your periods, that actually covers everything that it's related to the product to manage your period per se. So we have, you know, if you're able to own your period, that means that you have the mobility that you need to go places, to be able to literally, you know, put on whatever you want. I mean, we have several products. We not only have panties, we have pads, we have cups, and we are all about sustainable period products. So the idea for us is being able to offer women and girl choices. So basically, we know that period panties are really good for girls who are on the go because they're really flexible. They allow you to have like a larger pocket for you to have the absorbent. So if anybody has seen this already on our website, I can just tell you how it works. It's very simple. Here you have the panty. It's made with a sports material, so this is really easy to wash and dry. And it comes with this super pocket here inside. This pocket has a leak-proof material and a mesh. So basically, you're able to put inside this pocket any type of absorbent material that you want. So that's how it works. It's a universal pocket for absorbent material. So you have this, basically you have this in this, sorry, let me just make sure that my AC is working. So we have this in the shape of a panty, and we also have it in the shape of a pad. It works the same. It's just a universal pocket for absorbent material. Let me just show you here. It's very simple. The reason why I designed this way is because I knew a lot of people in very difficult conditions. They use pretty much any type of absorbent material they have handy, and that is okay. The thing is, like, I wanted just to give them the chance to use whatever absorbent material clean they had in a more ergonomic way. So different than any other sanitary pads that you have that are made, they are reusable. We feature a pocket. So you can literally just take any absorbent material and transform it into a sanitary pad. So that's when it comes to the own part. And as you see in our marketing, in our pictures and in everything, we are very like bright and happy and puppy. And the reason why we do this way is because if you have been always told that periods are dirty, that periods are ugly, and then suddenly it comes this brand that is completely celebrating periods, making them look cute and like something cool to wear and be. That's all what matters. And that's what we, when we talk about the love part, it's all our transformative marketing. So imagine if you always have been told that periods are dirty and you're dirty when you have your period, and then suddenly you get and receive a panty as beautiful as this, then that changes conversations. Because then suddenly something that it was really ugly becomes the most beautiful thing you have. So that's what we do through design. We manage to change those conversations and celebrate girls for who they are, and like we want them to be very comfortable in their skin. So I want to share here a product that is not widely available in our website, but this is really important because when we're talking about entrepreneurship, it's sometimes you have this type of marketing moves that's what we have been doing with makeup. So we're not a makeup company. Nevertheless, part of our strategy in terms of marketing or like messaging, it's about it's we don't want to be just a pads company or like a sanitary pads company. We want to be a lifestyle brand. And this is really important because what are the other things that girls do in their free time? Oh, maybe they do their nails. So you can have these conversations. Maybe, you know, like, so all this thing about like making that B Girl is not just a sanitary pads company, but it's actually a lifestyle brand. allows to have bigger conversations, more like it allows just to play in a bigger sandbox. So even though we're not a cosmetics company, we actually have the choice or like the opportunity to do this when we just reframe the conversation about being a woman or being a girl just from different perspectives, from different angles. And actually that allows us to have a way to communicate with a wider range of audiences. So if you just talk about periods, then the conversation sometimes gets a little bit narrow. But if you're talking about lifestyle, about like, feeling good, doing exercise and like, taking care of yourself, we just have a whole bigger range to get to the conversations that we want to do, but in a way that people doesn't even notice that we're doing it. So that's what we're talking about the Trojan horse is like creating all this like the structure on the outside, but at the end, at the very core, what I want is to make sure that people talk positively about their bodies and about their periods. But I have created all this structure so I can do this without having to fight too much resistance. So it's kind of like you just go through the world with a vanilla ice cream hat, and then like everybody likes vanilla, and at the end they have no clue that inside you have, I don't know, a pistachio, something like that, very exotic. So I really wanted to like share with you this is what the making of Big Girl has been. I mean, I never thought that I was going to be an entrepreneur of any sort. I never thought that I was going to go from like designing laptops to design panties at all. But here's where I am. It has been a beautiful journey, and this is something that I think a lot of social entrepreneurs can agree with me or empathize or like feel somehow tuned. It is the fact that we do what we do because we know it matters. And because it's this sense of responsibility that we have to do something to change the status quo or a situation that we thought was unfair or that it could have the possibility to be different. So that's definitely what we have wanted to do with Big Girl. And this is what for me has become my Trojan horse. So 2 years ago when I came to Mozambique, I managed to, in a country where you cannot even say vagina, because you can't say vagina, not even in the school, I managed to put a period runway in Mozambique Fashion Week. And nobody even didn't even knew that I was going to do this, but I did it in a way that was so seamless that when I actually show up with this on the runway, instead of being shout, I was actually applaud. And this is all when we are talking about designing a Trojan horse, is this, in a way it's not going against the grain. It's like, how do I go around it? How do I go under the radar? So I managed to do what I want to do with the least resistance. That is being efficient and that is being creative. And I think Colombians, I don't know how many Colombians were in this forum, but we're really good at like really being creative in ways how to get around with things. So this somehow is like, this was my strategy to make sure that I was able to embrace and beautify periods in a way that it was not going against sometimes, like the beliefs of people that they feel that culturally wise, this should have been something that it was more like a cause of shame. So that is basically what Big Girl has been doing for the last 8 years already. I mean, this was a personal project that it ended up being my company, but it has been a beautiful experience. And I just wanted to share this last couple slides. I think it's really important to acknowledge that you don't do these things on your own. I mean, I managed to do the first prototype on my own, and then kind of like a personal project here and there. But for these type of things, you do need a team, and you need to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're able to attract this type of amazing talent behind it, because on your own, it's very difficult to come up with something like this. And I wanted to give the credits because at the end, I'm just a designer, and I'm really good at making stuff, but like all the brains, everything that has to be, for the fundraising side, for all these things, like you need a team. So if you're planning to jump into this type of stuff, like, listen, be prepared and be ready to collaborate, because otherwise there's no way you can take these ideas further than just a piece of paper. And lastly, I just leave you with this picture out of when I was in Uganda. This picture was one of my friends who took it from me when I was doing my first prototype. So if you see, all this company started out of an umbrella and a mosquito net. That it was the material that I used for my first prototype. Of course, it was not as beautiful and good looking as this one, but that was where everything started. So if I managed to create bigger out of an umbrella and a mosquito net, imagine all the stuff that you can do. So that's basically my Trojan horse story. And I'm delighted that I had the opportunity to share it with you all. And I am an open book. You can ask any type of questions you want. I mean, this is an amazing job. I love it to death. It's not easy. And I'm here for you to ask anything that you want to know at a personal level, at a professional level, at a company level, because my job is not only to do this, my job is actually to make sure that I educate at other levels. I educate about what is the problem, but I also educate people, and at least I give them the opportunity to see what is being an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, either because then you're just gonna run for the hills and say, like, forget about it, I'm not going to do this, or because you say, you know what, this idea that I have been seeing for a while is worth to give it a shot. So the floor is all yours.
I am muted. That's the word of the year. Thank you, Diana, for that presentation. Your work is so inspiring. Thank you so much for talking so freshly and also so openly about this, your project, your life, and this, and the issues that you address, and the empowerment that you know you are. Um, uh, Unlocking in women's lives just by addressing their periods and their relationship with their bodies. I want to take us back in the journey and ask, how does someone from Santuario Risaralda, who studies design and is doing design products for big companies, how is that journey lead you to be girl? How does that happen? And what was that moment, that wow moment, when you said, this is something that I want to do, or that I need to be looking into?
Yes. So I managed to jump from Santuario to Bogota thanks to a scholarship. It was called Oportunidades. Back then, it was a program from la Universidad de los Andes, where they basically were giving opportunities to the higher education to kids that they were bright, but they were from very humble backgrounds. So I was fortunate enough to be broke enough to manage to get one of those scholarships, and it really was uh, a very, I mean, it's one of those things that changes your life, like from not having the opportunity to study because you have no money to go and study in the best university of the country. That was something that it was completely like a life changing event for me. Then in the university, I met a professor who recommended me to do an internship in New York, and I managed to get that internship. And from there, I mean, my Alberto Mantilla, which is a really renowned Colombian designer, he was my mentor. So I don't want to sound very religious, but I do have really nice people looking after me over there, because it's like I'm so fortunate that every time I happen to meet, like I never had money, but I had like so many amazing people that had come through my life and helped me and give me a hand, that career wise and personally wise, I have been always very fortunate to have these networks. So after working like almost 12, 14 years and developing all these products for the mass market industry, I was feeling very concerned with the fact that I was putting a lot of products in the market or in the world, that they were not made with the best manufacturing practices. So back then, my whole motivation to do my master's was the fact that I wanted to create greener products, better products, more responsible. But back then, 10 years ago, as you said, Carolina, it was like the only thing that we were able to do was like this life cycle assessment and like making sure that we can probably trade some Kyoto carbon credits for like making better stuff. And so I enrolled in this master's in Columbia University because it was a master's for people who worked. I work in the continuing education department, and like everything in life, I was taking random classes that you have to take, and I found this one about access to energy and poverty, and I was very curious. And it happens to be a Professor Sachs class that I completely crushed, and he changed my life because then he was talking about all the girls and boys that they suffer from burns on their skin because they have to be studying with a kerosene lamp, and then all the kids that died because they have to drink this dirty water when you have filters, when you have solar lamps, when you the kids that die from pneumonia because they have to inhale this heat fumes. And I was just shocked because I said, listen, all these things can be fixed. So this poverty is literally like the poverty is lack of access to design because these things already exist. And here I am making a ton of money, sitting in a pristine white studio in Panasonic, creating face steamers for people whose wrinkles are not going to go away. And all these people who really need stuff that is life changing, that is like, it really matters. Nobody's designing anything for them because they are not viable markets, or they are not like, they are not
Profitable
a
enough.
priority.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
So I thought about it. I said, like, I am in the wrong place. So I talked to Professor Sachs and I said, listen, Professor, you're bringing all these lawyers and like academics to your projects in Africa, in Uganda, and I think you should bring an engineer. At least I know how to set up like solar panels in our rooftop. So I'm not in your class, but I would love to go with you. And then let's see what we can do. And indeed, that's what we did. And I went to Uganda, completely crushed somebody else's program, and it really changed completely my perception of me as a human being, as a designer, because working so close with women and girls, I find out the issue of the lack of protection and how this really hinders their lives. So as an industrial designer, what do? We have a problem and then products come out of this side. So I created the first prototype, and this was a personal project that I was literally funding through my work in Panasonic. I got my check here and I spent it in sanitary pads all over that I was sending to several countries, to the point that it stopped being a personal project and this became my life. And then I quit Panasonic. I quit it because this was something that it was needed, because I just couldn't do this two full times in one. And I decided to be an entrepreneur, and I took a leap of faith and quit my design career and went into an incubator, go through the incubator, learn how to raise money, learn how to manage a business, and learn how to be an entrepreneur, which I'm still in the process. And I don't know if I'm being very successful or not, but happy, yes. Happy, definitely I am.
Well, and you were in 2016. I remember I was in the ceremony and I was so proud because you were one of, you won the prize for one of Colombia's best leaders. And it was an incredible thing to see you there because, it's Colombia and we have amazing leaders working on peace and on our ecological and environmental resources. But then you have someone actually talking about periods and designing, I know. And it's so, that's why I feel the story is so inspiring, because it's challenging the status quo, it's challenging the conversation, but it's going also to the soul of the conversation and what it means. I have a question here that, given that you're talking about how you became an entrepreneur, I think it's worth asking. Someone, Alejandra, is asking, what has been the biggest problem to overcome on your project and on a personal level?
Balance. I can tell you, Alejandra, balance, because I think whoever is doing this type of work, we are like sometimes blinded by the fact that we're so in love, or like so inside our, like, we are up to here with the project or with the work, that we don't have a good life balance. And that is very difficult because along the way, we have people that live with us, that share this life with us, that we end up taking all the time that belongs to them just because we also put it in our project. So not only this type of ventures, they take a lot of economic resources. Sometimes you quit your job, or sometimes you like invest your salary, like your payments, or you invest your savings into this, but also the time that you need to take away from the people that you love or that supports you to do this. So I think finding that balance is really important, because at the end, the sacrifice may be too high to pay. And if there's something that I can tell to myself back, is like, just be more mindful that the people who loves you also needs you. So you don't forget about them in the process of becoming or creating.
That is so important. Thank you so much for sharing that very heartfelt and personal experience. I agree. I think we see social entrepreneurs balancing a lot of acts, and they are admirable for their commitment, but also they're making a lot of sacrifices in the process of becoming a social entrepreneur and understanding what that meant, from a successful career in design and marketing to this transition. I have two questions. So the first one is, what um was there someone, what made a difference in that transition? And the other one is, what does it mean for you to adapt, and how important is it to build that resilience and adapt to this challenge, and the multiple situations that you face as an entrepreneur?
So the person who made a difference, I can tell you right away. Her name is Alfonsina, and when I was doing all this work, all these pilots back then, when this was a personal project, so I basically, as a designer, we're very data oriented in terms of user feedback. So I was distributing pads. Back then, Bigger didn't even existed. It was not. It was just like pads, and I was distributing pads along with surveys. So we have an entry line survey, and then an end line survey, and I was tracking how these pads, accessing these pads, affected the life of girls in terms of mobility, happiness, the fact that they feel secure going to school. And I remember that in purpose, I left one little box at the end of the survey saying, like, what is the thing that you like the most about this pads? It's like one of those qualitative questions that you ask. And I remember that I was like going through surveys, like tons of them by hand, and like, reviewing things. And it was one particular survey that completely changed everything. And this was a Wednesday afternoon, almost night. In this survey from Alfonsina, she's from Tanzania. She said, like, in this little box, it said, like, the thing that I like the most about these pads is that somewhere someone loves me because she made these beautiful pads for me, and I feel proud to be girl. That moment, Carolina, I can tell you, I can share this story as many times as I have the opportunity, and it still touches me to the most deep side, because this girl is like far away, far, far away in another continent, and she feels loved just because of an object that I made. Next day, I quit Panasonic.
That's amazing. That's
Exactly this, the next day, I quit Panasonic. As I listen, I want to replicate this experience to every single girl I can possibly can. And then to your second questions in terms of resilience and flexibility, I think that's the key of being a social entrepreneur, because we work under the most difficult conditions to serve the most underserved markets. And we have to be ultra creative and flexible to tap into resources, to communicate, to actually even explain what is the value that we bring to the table. So we have to be adapting all the time to different audiences, to different type of scenarios, and just not to go so far, COVID has been crazy. It completely changed the land of and the landscape, how we do business and how to communicate and how we do our work. If you don't adapt, then you're gone, especially right now with these situations and like the the limitations, but also the requirements to stay alive as a business are very stiff. So if you don't have the flexibility and you don't have the structure that allows you to squeeze through a hole like this, like it is a hole like this, then you're out. So being flexible and resilient is critical. But I think regarding the resilience part, it's really important to keep the team motivated, that no matter how hard things are, that your team feel that they bring something to the table, that they're valued and that they matter. That's where the resilience stays, because if things are very difficult and you have to lower salaries or do something, but people know that you care about them, they will stick. So that's something that I learned from COVID and all these things. Like, yes, we are resilient, yes, but we are resilient not because the company is resilient. We are resilient because the team is resilient.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is so, it's so true that especially in hard times, it is important that not only the leader stays strong, but also shows vulnerability and builds that within the team. So everybody with a common sense of purpose overcome the different challenges in order to address and to, fulfill that higher purpose that you are all trying to meet. I have a couple of questions that I find very interesting, and I'm going to also merge them together because this is more talking about, and you mentioned this briefly in your presentation about, reproductive rights and talking about periods and menstruation in fairly conservative countries and continents like Africa and South America, Latin America. So the question is, two questions that I want to merge. The first one is, how is that conversation different in Latin America and Africa? What have you encountered? And then the other one is, what has been the process of introducing the smart cycle device to and bringing voice into the conversation? What has it meant to also uh, socialize this device with the boys?
Yes. So in terms of the difference, I think the similarities are actually around the globe are more than the differences. I mean, this is a very taboo topic that unfortunately is rooted extremely deep into society. I mean, in Colombia, we still have the belief that if we have our period and we go to take, we cut our hair, that all these curls are gonna go away, for example, that your hair gets like this. Or like if you're going to go and take care of a plant, that if you happen to have your period, that your plant is going to die. So in that sense, a lot of those myths and taboos, I don't know how, but whoever spread this thing was very efficient, because they got across cultures in ways that you will not imagine. So our approach has been very similar. And what is this one? Sexual reproductive health really scares people. Why? Because in a way, when you're talking about your body and being able to make informed decisions, there's a lot of people that they don't want that to be the case. So what we managed to do is, instead of talking about sexual reproductive health, we talk about body literacy. It's exactly the same thing, it's just packaged differently. So when we are talking about somebody who is like completely against the wall about saying vagina, and then you just know we're just talking about body literacy, how the biology of the of the body works, and this and that, then all their alarms get completely disconnected. So it's just changing the conversation. So if you go and talk to somebody and you tell them, we're going to be teaching 20,000 girls and boys about sexual reproductive health and how their organs works and all that stuff, people will run for the hills and they will shut the door. But if you tell them, hey, we're doing workshops teaching body literacy so people have better take care of their body and things like that, completely under the radar. So that was very intentional, and we did it that way, and has been extremely successful. So anybody in this call working in this space, just change the rhetoric, just change the way that you are framing the conversation, and just do it lightly, because at the end, if you go against it, the only thing that is going to happen if you go like full force like this is it's going to bounce back. But if you just do this, then you manage to enter. So that, in terms of like, the differences, but at the end it's more like similarities. And then the process of the smart cycle with boys, I cannot express, Carolina, like how important it is to do this work 50-50. You educate the girl, you educate the boy. Why? Because a lot of the times you do all these interventions and you focus on the girl, the girl, the girl, but guess what? The girl is going to have a boyfriend. She has a father. She's always going to have their counterpart being part of her life. So we need to educate both. So boys also, they need to understand where babies come from. They need to understand that people don't get pregnant just because of a sneeze. You get pregnant and you just don't get pregnant by yourself. I mean, like, there's like this is it's a situation that you have two people involved. So it's really important that they do also understand the biology of it, but also the decision making that they have in the process. Because same as girls, they can choose or not to have babies. They can also, as educated parents and partners, can do the same. So, and in that case, the Smart Cycle has been amazing, because we call the program that we do with boys building cycles of empathy. So basically, they go to the workshop, they are taught how the menstrual cycle works, and they receive this little clock, and with the exchange or with the promise that they're going to give it to a woman that is important in their life, and they're going to teach them how this works, and basically this becomes a present that they're going to give to that special woman in their lives. So it's a beautiful, beautiful work. And I can tell you one of the most beautiful stories that I have from this little guy was actually in Bogota. So we were working in El Barrio Las Cruces, and we were doing an intervention in one of the schools there. And I happened to have this little boy, I think he was probably, I don't know, like 9 or 10. And I saw him after the workshop, like, especially he was like one of the tiniest in the class taking the workshop. And he was folding this smart cycle inside the little bag with so much care and like so much love, that I was very curious. And I say, so to whom are you going to give this little clock to? And he's like, to my sister. And then I say, yes. And like, how old is your sister? No, no, no. My sister is very small yet. But my mom had me when she was very young, and she had a really difficult life. So I want to make sure that when my little sister is ready, she knows what she needs to know, so she doesn't have to work as hard as my mom. Carolina.
Those stories are like, they make you tear up. It's amazing. And those are the stories that change your life. Wow.
Exactly. Imagine this like 10-year-old boy that you thought that information was coming through this here and going out here, like, because we saw like what he's going to understand. Like, he does.
He
He was
connected
putting
the dots.
attention.
Yeah, he connected the dots more than you expected, than that anyone expected.
And
Wow.
that is worth doing. So
Yeah.
that's the type of things that you said, like, yes, let's bring boys into the conversation, like, just like let's give them the opportunity. And I think in that sense, I'm very not pragmatic, but like, I have nothing against boys. I have nothing against males. And I think, this conversation about feminismo and this thing, like all these things, like, I just think it's easier when you just like give everybody the same space. Like, when we do this type of work, is that we don't want to blame anybody. No, we just want to make sure that we have, listen, I want to work for a world where access to opportunities is due to your merits and not your gender. Period. So let's just like, but let's make it equal in both ways. If we teach girls, we teach boys. If we do this program with girls, we do it with boys. And then at the end, all of us are going to be way better off with more access to information.
Yeah. That is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I have a question that someone that Isabella is asking, and I'm gonna merge it. I'm gonna just tweak it a little bit. But in all the iterations you've had of your products, and and of Be Girl itself. How do you involve the communities, the users in the design and the use and everything else? How are they involved in these iterations?
B-Girl is based on experiences that they're shared with the users since inception. Just to tell you, the very first sanitary pads that I made, they were made black. Black fabric, black everything. And the reason why I made them black was because I thought about blood. So I wanted to have a color that somehow camouflages the red. And I remember when I was doing the testing with the girls in the school, the very first one, they said that they really liked the pads, but that why we're not colorful, that they wanted it to be fashion, colorful, bright. Like, who in their mind, like a designer, like who, like how I would ever thought about that? And then actually I did. And like, instead of being black, I made them purple and blue and like colors that, you know, when you have red and red fall, like, you know, you have a drop of red and purple, it just becomes dark purple. And if it's a drop of red and blue, it just becomes purple. So that's why all our products are in that range of colors, just to make sure that we take the very bright color, the red color, and we just like tame it down. But we do it in a way that is like fashion and is beautiful. So we have like patterns, we have colors. And this is literally, I mean, I have never thought about it, but then thanks to the fact that we're always listening to the girls, that's the reason why we did that. And why we went from a pad to a panty. Very simple, because we were distributing pads left and right. And then through the surveys, we were told that the girls said that, yes, they really like the pads, but they don't have underwear where to put it on. So we said, okay, the girls don't have underwear. So how we solve this pocket in the shape of a panty? Then here we do it. So absolutely everything. I don't put a line on this book without actually having interacted with the user. That it's my duty as designer. And it's the way that I show respect to the people that I want to serve.
Thank you so much for that answer. I have another question here that I'm also going to complement. I, I think we would like to know, how does Big Girl end up in Mozambique, and how does Diana end up in Mozambique, and why is Mozambique an important market for Big Girl?
Yes. So B-Girl is started in the US, you know, and that's basically where we have been based since inception. And most of the work that we were doing was basically working with NGOs and that type of partnership. So the products were distributed free of cost to girls. So Mozambique basically was done thanks to a scholarship, or like a grant. It's not scholarship, like a grant from the government of Canada, which is called the Grand Challenges Canada, and it was a business development grant. And basically they gave us the investment needed to be able to open an office in continent, like different than the US and in the continent of Africa. So I came here in 2017 and did a trip. I traveled through 7 countries doing a market assessment, a needs assessment. And out of those 7 countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Madagascar, all those places, Mozambique happened to have a really interesting profile. 60% of the population is under 25. They're super young. Almost 90% self-employed, or they live under $2.5 a day. There was nobody doing this type of work here. And we had a really good partner, which is Population Services International, PSI. So they were able to open a lot of the doors for us to be able to set up the office. So that's the first question, like why Mozambique? And second, why Diana? Well, listen, I'm the CEO of the company, and this was such a responsibility that I just couldn't leave this like heavy burden to anybody's shoulder, because if you screw up, then you're out of business pretty much. So sometimes you just have to make the call, and you need to understand that there are some things that only the person who can take the heat, the most of the heat is the one that should go. And in my case, it's me. I'm the one. At the end, the bus stops with me. So I just can't do this to somebody that was working with me, just like to give us like this heavy load. And I mean, it's impossible, but it had to be me. But you know what, Carolina, this is such a beautiful place that I'm glad that it ended up being me because I love it here.
Oh, I know. I can attest to that. It's a beautiful country with beautiful beaches, especially at the north, and wonderful, happy people. Also, great food. So I'm sure you're having a great time and enjoying yourself in Africa. I
Big
agree.
time.
There you go. Now we have invitation for everyone. You have to go to this continent and just meet the wonderful people that are there.
Yes.
Um, the we have a comment and then a question from Christian, who actually saw you before when you gave a talk at the Universidad Católica de Pereira,
Mhm.
and he said that you inspired him, and he would like to know what are some of the challenges that to overcome, the social impact for those working on, social innovation and especially social innovation projects through design. What are the major challenges that need to be transcended?
I think one of the biggest problems that we have in social problems or social innovation is the fact that funding had have not catch up in terms of vehicles. Like there is like a lot of funding designed for NGOs, and it's very specific. They want to make sure that you don't do profit, that you don't do this, that you don't like. And if you're an NGO, you can actually have several ways to get revenue or like funding for doing your ideas. But when you're a social entrepreneur, you're trying to solve social problems, but through market mechanisms. So those things sometimes there's not the funding space, the funding landscape is not sophisticated enough to give us the room that we need to access that capital. Because actually funding, there is funding out there. It's just that sometimes for this type of very traditional ways of funding to understand what is the role of the social entrepreneur, either regardless if it's designer or not, is to be able to register in the right way. Like for example, in Colombia, you don't have the B corporation, you don't have the this type of structures that allow you to have probably breaks on taxes. I mean, if somebody is working to make sure that people have access to clean water, wouldn't be fair if that person pays less taxes than a company that is selling oil, or like maybe I don't know, Alessi lamps
Yeah,
per
yeah,
se. I mean, like the structures are not there, and it's a lot of our work as an entrepreneurs to also try to educate that sector so they at the legal level and at the financing level they just they just catch up. I think that's like the biggest hurdle, like the biggest challenge I think we keep facing.
yeah. Wow, that is so interesting, and you're so right. And even when we look at the investor um, arena, and when you look at that ecosystem, and right now we're hearing, ESG investing, sustainable investing, impact investing. There's so much noise, and nobody even understand what that means. We don't even know how to measure impact, and now we have organizations that are actually addressing with different structures the very problems social problems that we need to be solving. And it's like the capitalist system is not catching up, although we're using the system itself and its market forces to solve the problems. It's
Exactly.
such an interesting take what you just mentioned. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to ask, because I know we're coming to the top of the hour, but what is next for Big Girl? And where do you see it in the next 10 and 50 years? Where will we
Well,
where are we going to see you?
I woman. I mean, like when I started Big Girl, I had no clue that I was going to be in Mozambique, like doing panties like 10 years ago. That's for sure. So in 10 years from now, like I honestly think that I really at a business level or like at an organization level, I really want to become the Nike of period underwear for emerging markets. So I really want to make sure that we are at the same level that disposables are, that they're really accessible to anybody who can have the opportunity to purchase them. I really want to make sure that periods are not a problem to begin with. You know, like that is something that I know I can work until all my hair turns gray, is advocacy for body ownership and agency. So I don't know if I that will requires me to become a politician, but I'm willing to do it. Listen, I left my pen and paper long time ago to become the CEO of this company and bury myself in Excel sheets. And I did it because it was the right thing to do, and because I'm convinced to my core that that's what I needed to be done, and that was my sacrifice. I wouldn't mind to become a politician if that is going to allow me to make sure that everybody has this type of education in their books and in their schools, and like periods is something that somebody shouldn't be ashamed of. So what I want to be in 10 years, probably I will still be advocating for making sure that everybody understands their body and have the agency to make good decisions for themselves. As a company, I want to become Nike for period
Yeah.
underwear. So let's touch base
Oh
in
my
10
goodness.
years
Oh,
and see that is going to
sure.
happen.
With that energy and that willingness, I am sure you'll get very far. And the best thing is that you'll be supporting the and empowering so many women and girls that I'll be happy to see you continue in that road to success. It's been
Thank you so much.
no, I'm sure. Like because I remember the old days where we just met and this was just starting. So to see it in fruition and to see how far it's gone, it's truly, truly admirable. And your commitment, it's inspirational. And that's what this talks are about. So it's been my pleasure and my honor to lead this conversation with you. Before I close up with any with the final remarks, I want to give you the opportunity to share anything else that we didn't ask or the audience didn't ask and that you would like to share, any anecdote or piece of advice, anything that you would like to share before we close.
I just want to tell people, in this time right now that we're so bombarded with social media and with news and everything, it's really easy to become numb and don't feel anymore. Because when you're scrolling on Facebook, as soon as you see somebody dying from hunger in Syria, then you see a little video of a dog. So that type of way of consuming information, it's really making us feel like senseless, like numb, that we don't feel the pain and all that stuff. So my invitation to everybody is, next time don't keep scrolling, or next time don't look away. Like when if you see something that you think is unfair, that you think that should be changed, you don't have to move to another continent to make the difference, but do something. If you have an idea that you have been throwing around that can help somebody, just do it, even at a small scale. Start with something, but like, do not look away. I mean, I cannot express this enough, but like, the people who care, we need to stop just caring and more doing. So less care and do more than just sharing a post or something like that. Let's be more active in seeing the way that how we can contribute to this planet in a positive way, because we don't have much chances. We only have this planet, we only have this life. I don't know if it exists other one after this one, but this is our chance. So let's try to do what we can right now, that we have the time, that we have our hands, and let's just work in a way that we actually earn the air that we breathe. This is a really beautiful opportunity to be in this planet. Let's deserve it. So that's my invitation.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. That was perfect. I shouldn't even say anything, but I'm just gonna uh, thank you again, Diana, for this
My
wonderful,
pleasure.
wonderful talk. I also want to thank the team at CAA for making this event possible. Lina Delgado, Alejandra Churi, Linda Calvet, and Ivan Perea. And of course, The CAA would like to invite everyone to keep in touch for future events. Thank you all for participating. And thank you, Diana, for such wonderful, story, such inspiration, such commitment. It's been a real pleasure to share this space with you. And we'll stay in touch.
Thank you. Always, as long as you can get me with connectivity, I'm all yours. So thank you again for the invitation. And I expect everybody in Mozambique. This is beautiful. Coconuts and on the beach, they're something that, it's a small, but it's like beautiful luxury thing to have. So yeah, just make it on the bucket list. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much again, Diana. We'll speak soon.
Un beso.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.